Executive Director Will Hart from the Idaho Consumer-Owned Utility Association. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Logan, for having me.
To start things off here, can you introduce me to your organization and who you represent?
Sure. The Idaho Consumer-Owned Utilities Association represents 22 rural electric co-ops and municipal power companies serving across the state of Idaho. We serve about 140,000 Idahoans, which is about 16% of the state. We're primarily rural, not-for-profit utilities that are self-regulated by our elected boards of directors and the city councils in the communities where they serve.
And how long has power grid security been a concern generally? I assume it's been on the radar for a while, but has it been growing lately?
Well, grid security is always of primary importance. And now, it continues to be and has always been Mother Nature, which is the main threat to the grid security. Mitigating against wildfires, preparing for severe storms, and then safely and quickly repairing those outages and keeping the lights on has just always been and continues to be our paramount mission in the electric industry. Now, new threats have emerged, cybersecurity and physical security. There's been an uptake in those threats, and that's something that we're continuously monitoring, assessing, and reevaluating our readiness plans in light of those relatively new or at least more frequent threats to the grid.
And what do you do to implement those sort of plans? I know you can't talk specifics because of security issues, but generally speaking.
Yeah, you're right. I can't talk to the specifics about our security measures, but I will say that it involves everything from the regular cyber housekeeping that all businesses and all utilities should be involved with on a regular basis, implementing new technologies, whether that is within the grid for hardening of our systems, and on the cybersecurity side as well, upgrading systems to prevent access to our utility that then could move on to another place on the grid. Those are all things that we incorporate in the industry on a daily basis and are even higher priority now with the uptick in events that we've seen happening over the last few months.
Sure, we've seen in recent months intentional attacks on power substations in places like Washington and North Carolina. Are those of a particular concern here in Idaho, especially because of how rural we are?
Yeah, Idaho faces the same risks as the rest of the country. Like you said, we've seen an uptick in attacks in the Pacific Northwest and across the country. So we're not unique in that. And that's why we continually coordinate to monitor, assess, and employ multi-layers of security for the grid in the state of Idaho. But yeah, we do have some unique challenges. The terrain, oftentimes the rural nature of where critical infrastructure is located. So we're having to reassess and update and really get back into our emergency preparedness plans on how we, more specifically, what additional things we can do to protect our system.
And what sort of resources are available for particularly your members who are smaller and specifically rural power utility? They don't have the budget and resources that are available to a larger corporation like an Idaho Power, for example.
Yeah, you are right. The rural electric co-ops and the municipal power companies I represent primarily serve in rural parts of the state where, we have a lot longer distance in customers per mile. Often our critical infrastructure is located outside population areas. And quite frankly, we have smaller staffs and smaller budgets to work with. But as a whole, we're coordinating as an industry, and despite the challenges we've been talking about, Idaho does have a lot of resources available. The industry is currently working with the Idaho Office of Energy and Mineral Resources on specific funding for grid resilience and reliability. Those monies, our first round is going out on the ground right now, so there's projects, shovel-ready projects across the state on grid security being done right now. We work closely with the Idaho Office of Emergency Management on updating our emergency plans and coordinating with them. We also have what's called the Idaho Mutual Assistance Group, or IMAG, that all utilities in Idaho are part of, that work on best practices for grid security, and most importantly, we have agreements to come to each other's aid in time of crisis. right in our own backyard, we have the Idaho National Laboratory. It has amazing resources, new technology being developed, and quite frankly, the lab is on the forefront of all of grid security and cybersecurity for the nation, and that's right in our own backyard.
I spoke with the INL director, John Wagner, about cybersecurity issues this summer, and they're a wealth of information, as have you been a wealth of information today. Executive Director Will Hart with the Idaho Consumer-Owned Utilities Association, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Logan.